Hello and welcome to the IIS Rail webinar session on identifying the right data to predict and mitigate rail supply chain risks, produced by the International Railway Summit in association with Supplyon. My name is Jules Omura. I'm the Managing Director of various events, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So at the last count, we had over 80 people from 36 countries registered for today. So welcome to those of you attending our webinar program for the first time, and welcome back if you've joined us before. This is the second of a two-part webinar program on rail supply chain. Last week, we discussed how we can build resilient supply chain processes against the current backdrop of supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic, political uncertainties, and climate change. But building resilient processes is only part of the story. In order to overcome specific challenges faced by each manufacturer and each customer, we need to be able to identify and analyze the right data to predict risks and prepare well and mitigate with disruption. Material scarcity, increasing freight costs, port congestion, and difficult demand forecasting are just a few of the immediate disruptions manufacturers and their customers are currently facing. What are the risks associated with your specific supply chain operations, and what data can you rely on to accurately predict and mitigate those risks? This will be the topic of our debate for the next 90 minutes. We have once again the support of leading experts as speakers with us today. In particular, we're grateful to Supplyon for their support, which allows us to provide this important debate for anyone to watch for free. Supplyon is a leading expert in digital supply chain management. Many of the world's key manufacturers and now a growing number of rail operators and rolling stock manufacturers rely on Supplyon's shared supply chain collaboration platform to manage the complex and dynamic supply partnerships. So once again, we're joined by the account manager and senior consultant for supply chain management, Sasha Corbis, and I look forward to learning about Supplyon's expertise on supply chain risk mitigation from him shortly. I'm equally grateful to Anna Shiraga from Arriva and Klaas Halvardsson from Bane Nor for sharing their expertise with us today. This is an interactive session, so you're invited to participate proactively in the discussion. You will see on your screen a chat section where you're welcome to share your feedback and say hello to other participants and tell us what you think about the debate. You can ask questions to the speakers, so do please use a Q&A section and send in your questions. You can also vote the other people's questions by clicking on the thumbs up button to show that you'd like that question to be asked. And those questions will be asked by the moderator during the Q&A session. We have two polls, audience polls today, so do look out for that, and we'll be interested to know what you think of these couple of questions. There are, if you go to the handout section, the two presentations you'll see today, you'll hear today are listed there, and you'll be able to download those presentations. And finally, if you stay until the end, you'll see a pop-up on your screen asking for your evaluation. So do please fill that out, and we're very interested to hear your opinion on this webinar. And if you missed that, you also get an email from us to ask for your opinion. So that's very important for us. So do complete that for us. We're tweeting live during this webinar, so you can follow us at Rail Summit, and please use our hashtag IRSRailWebinars. If you enjoy the session, do continue the debate on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now it's my pleasure to welcome back Mary Hewitt, who will once again guide us through our debate. Mary is a partner in Deloitte's strategy and analytics practice, and she specializes in transport and the UK rail sector. Until August this year, she was strategy and policy director at Arriva UK Trains, And prior to that, she was Managing Director of Chiltern Railways in the UK. So welcome back, Mary. And I look forward to today's debate on identifying the right data to predict and mitigate rail supply chain risks. Mary, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jules, and welcome everybody. I would say good afternoon, but as Jules has said, we've got people all over the world. So welcome to the debate. As Jules mentioned, last week we had a fascinating debate on building resilience into the supply chain. My takeaway, as I said at the time, was it was all about partnerships. And I think today's discussion is actually going to extend that discussion. Actually, how can we predict and mitigate supply chain risk earlier? So we've got two great speakers to come, followed by a panel discussion. As Jules has said, this is an interactive session, so please do put your questions in. So it's an opportunity to ask them. If you can put them in at any point during the webinar, and we will ask them at the end during the panel discussion. Thank you. I was reflecting last week, and since the last webinar, supply chain continues, COP aside, to be one of the top items in the news at the moment. Supply chains have gone more global. It is a global market fighting for limited resource, whether that resource be commodities or labour as well. And the risks seem to be increasing. As the world comes out of COVID, we're not only kind of recovering in our health systems and the health side of it and employment side of it, but we're seeing actually the true consequences from an economic perspective as well. Global brands that are kind of highly regarded and thought to have some of the most secure supply chains in the world are also having challenges. And there are lessons to be learned for everybody throughout in terms of what the rail sector can learn and how we can apply that in the rail sector. And I'm sure we will hear more of that over the course of this afternoon. And the question to me is, what are these risks? We have the obvious risks, but there are also risks that are less obvious. How do we work with our supply chains to understand what these risks are? How do we partner with them, building on the themes from last night, to mitigate these risks, to predict and to help the supply chain predict what the risks might be? And how do we protect ourselves from, by working together? Furthermore, in a world that was previously very transactional based, it's increasingly moving to relationship based and partnership based. And how does that change how you might approach the risk management and how you kind of predict what the risks might be? So before I introduce our first speaker, I'm just going to launch the first poll. So it should be appearing on your screens any second now. In which department do you see the biggest potential for risk management systems? Strategic sourcing, operational procurement, logistics, accounting, quality management, and operations and productions. So whilst you are thinking about that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. So Anna, she's head of global procurement processes and systems at Arriva, based in London. I should probably admit we are former colleagues and know each other well, but she has over 20 years of experience leading complex transformation programs across a range of areas, including finance, procurement and sales operations. She's worked across multiple sectors with diverse organisations, including obviously at Arriva, but also with Orange Business Services and a packaging company, Wrexham, as well as international charities and social enterprises. She has in-depth knowledge of digital transformation strategy and systems-led change. And I can guarantee that, having been on the other end of it. Furthermore, she's got an executive MBA from London Business School and holds an MSc in banking, an MA in photography, a Six Sigma Black Belt, an ACCA fellowship and an IFRS diploma. So we are in great company today. If we just close the poll and get the results. So results should just be coming up. So we can see actually, Anna, of the results, the department that came out on top was strategic sourcing, closely followed by operations and productions, and then followed by operational procurement. Does that surprise you, or is that in line with your thinking?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see strategic sourcing at the top of the results. Personally, as someone who works very closely with our strategic procurement teams, I'm not at all surprised, because the relationships with our vendors are key to that sustainable supply chains. And as Mary mentioned just a while ago, the world is moving from transactional paradigm to that partnership paradigm. And so it is through understanding in a very, very profound, deep way those supplier relationships that we can de-risk our supply chains.
Great, thanks, Anna, and over to you with your presentation.
Lovely, thank you very much for having me. I'm thrilled to be telling you the story of how we built the foundations of supply risk management at Arriva. Our plan for today, I won't introduce myself in great detail because Mary did that fantastically well for me just now, but I'll tell you a little bit about the business that I work for, about Arriva. I'll tell you about the challenge that we faced when embarking on that journey, building foundations for supply risk management at Arriva. I'll tell you about the solution we chose and the key conclusions coming out of that project. I won't introduce myself again, but I'll say, because I've seen on the list of attendees, we've got some colleagues from Poland. I was born in Poland. I now live between London and the Lake District. And if you hear the dog in the background, that's our Romanian rescue. Forgive me for the noise. Forgive us for the noise, but in the age of working from home, that's to some extent inevitable. So Arriva, we are the leading provider of passenger transport services across Europe. We are present across 14 European countries, over 46,000 employees, and over 2 billion passenger journeys a year. We provide different modes of transport. Rail is one, with over 800 trains. We are very strong in terms of bus passenger transportation, with over 16,000 buses, and there are other modes of transport that we provide. And since 2010, we have been a part of Deutsche Bahn, which is one of the largest passenger transport companies in the world. So now to the challenge. What was the challenge that I and my team faced when embarking on the journey to build that solution? Well, built from scratch, so from start, a solution to understand and manage supply chain risks in a wildly diverse organization, with no single group-wide procurement system, and with its revenue profoundly affected by the pandemic. Let me qualify some of the statements that I highlighted. First of all, widely diverse. So Arriva Group includes 21 different transport organizations across 14 European countries. Some of them could be 500 million in revenue, some of them could be 10 million. So huge diversity in size and complexity. Each business uses its own set of processes and systems and works to different commercial conditions, right? So the operating models and business conditions will vary significantly business to business. And a business culture, because of the different commercial conditions to a significant extent, the business culture is decentralized. And quite often, local business leaders could be used to taking decisions locally without engaging with the group functions. So if you think about building a group-wide process, you can imagine what sort of challenge that is. And then the second statement that's relevant to talking about data: no single group-wide system. Arriva's roughly 25 transactional systems are not integrated as standalone. They could be as large as Oracle or SAP, but they could be small. And they could be bespoke systems that were built by a local developer, and they could be maintained locally but by a small developer. And so access to data is mostly manual. However, we had an ace up our sleeve, and so Going back to 2018, my team launched a solution which we call Expendo. It's a spend management BI solution that collects and categorizes procurement spend data across the entire business. That solution, that's refreshed on a monthly basis, also holds the basic data about all of our Arriva suppliers. And that solution was the key data enabler for our solution, for our supplier risk management solution. What were the requirements for our solution? I mentioned already a group-wide solution. And so it needed to be a solution that would work for a small, very small business, that would also work for a very large business. Not complex, very complex. It had to be lightweight and quick to deploy. So it would work regardless of the diversity of the systems that I explained earlier, and would not be a significant impact on the resources against quite strained by the pandemic. And finally, the challenge that many of us working in transformation understand very well, the solution had to be inexpensive. And I'll quantify that a bit later, what inexpensive meant in the end. So what was our approach? So we developed this approach working very closely with our colleagues in group compliance, and throughout developing that approach and with all these limitations for the solution, we concluded that the best approach is a risk-based approach, right? Which means that we aligned our focus on our resources with the areas where we saw the highest risks. And so what does that mean in practice? In practice, it means that we had a layer of minimum requirements. Those minimum requirements apply to all suppliers and are relatively straightforward. They are so straightforward that they could typically be met by the existing vendor setup processes. For example, ensuring that the business is correctly established or has got no embargoes, government sanctions, not blacklisted. And then, again, following that risk-based approach, we introduced a layer of enhanced requirements that applied to larger suppliers, those suppliers whose spend would exceed the local tender thresholds. So what we would call strategic suppliers, right? And requirements there include a legal and financial stability screening, and could include a category-specific review where necessary. For example, information security has got its own specific requirements, and that's what we call a category-specific review. We also have an ongoing monitoring for all existing suppliers that automatically sends us alerts when there is a risk event against that vendor. So the risks that are covered: legal, regulatory, financial stability, and category-specific where applicable, and all of our suppliers are in scope. And data, how do we actually build set of data to support those decisions? So starting with the first set of really very basic supplier data: supplier name, supplier country, the business unit that works with that supplier. We use that data to connect with the vendor risk information using two external risk databases, so Refinitiv WorkCheck for legal and regulatory risks, and CreditSafe for financial stability risks. And then category-specific risks are assessed by SME subject matter experts. Yeah. That enriched data then is used by the business, so the risk decisions are taken by the business to decide whether the risk is high, medium, low, and whether they want to accept the vendor, mitigate the risk, or reject the vendor. And we built a set of group guidelines supported by training to help the businesses take that risk decision. And then there's a really very, very basic, simple, effective, and efficient workflow around that process. So we use really just the existing Microsoft 365 package tools: Excel, SharePoint, Microsoft Forms. And a member of my team provides training and monitors adoption. So overall, a very simple but effective solution, because we launched this solution after a lot of work at the beginning of this year. Now every business out of those 21 businesses in Arriva uses this process for new and existing vendors. We've had over 300 screenings for new vendors performed during the first 9 months of use of this process. And without going into the specifics, because that can be confidential information, there have been a number of contract award decisions where that process significantly influenced the decision on to whom award that contract. And finally, the total annual cost of the solution is a 5-figure number. And again, can't tell you exactly how much it is, but it is, in the world of system-driven transformation, in the world of financial procurement systems, a very low cost. So the positives, we now have a group-wide view of all the supplier risks. It is an inexpensive solution that doesn't generate significant workload, and we're building that risk awareness throughout the business. However, again, the process is manual and standalone. It's by far not cutting edge. So business adoption relies on consistent monitoring of its usage and chasing the business to use this process, and not all the risks are accurately described by the data sources that we use. So what are the key takeaways? When I say start simple, I will not only talk about this project. It is the rule of transformation and business change that starting simple and then iterating is a very good approach. Start simple, build the foundation, and then add layers. That risk-based approach, the prioritization, focusing on those areas of your business where the risk is the most significant, will give you the biggest results the fastest. And the Pareto rule is an example of prioritization. Even the simplest set of data can be useful, just supplier names, where the foundation of a very effective supplier risk management system. However, overall, we concluded that when talking about the risk data, the risk information is complex and ambiguous. And we can get that data, even if the process that we are currently operating was more automated. We would still need that human judgment to take the right decision.
Great, thank you, Anna, for that. A great quote to finish on, and some really food for thought in there as well. I see some questions are coming in on the Q&A, so to everybody else, please do get your questions coming in. There's an opportunity to really challenge the panel and ask those burning questions that you've always thought about. We're now, before we go on to our second speaker, going to launch our second poll, so it should be appearing on your screen any minute now. What kind of risk management tool do you use in your company? A fully integrated risk management, as in strategic and operational, risk management without integration to operational processes, manual risk management process with limited scope, no risk management tool, process implemented or used, and I don't know. And whilst you are pondering that and getting your answers in, I would like to introduce our second speaker, Sasha Kobes. So Sasha Kobes is an account manager and senior consultant with Supplyon. He's been with Supplyon now for 10 years, and he's the account manager responsible for various globally active industrial companies, responsible for integrating and optimizing their global processes using Supplyon. He's got a clear focus on process optimization and supply chain digitalization, and he's led various consulting and implementation projects in this area, as well as in purchasing, strategic sourcing, transportation management, and quality management. Excuse me. He's got over 20 years consulting experience and takes a broad and holistic view to business challenges. Sasha, we just need to close the poll, sorry, and then it will be over to you. 1 second. So if we close the poll now, we can get the results. So again, interestingly, over a third of respondees said they've just got a manual risk management process with limited scope. A quarter don't know, and then a fifth have a fully integrated system. So it was interesting, a real range there. What do you make of those results?
Okay, so thank you, Mary. Exactly, this is a topic. So the risk management implementation is a topic where we automatically talk about standardization and integration. If we go to the next slide, I will show to you. Yeah, so therefore, I would like to start with my first statement. So the supply chain risk management has to be managed from a holistic point of view approach, and this makes it not so easy because if we talk with holistic view, some parties have problems to really integrate such a process. Yeah, to generate competitive advantages, it's relevant to include all or most or many suppliers, stakeholders, and this such a tool, a supply chain management tool, should be ideally available in a cross-functional level for not only one department, to best way for multiple departments, so that all stakeholders internally can take the advantage of the risk management system. And yeah, many parties need support, or companies to make the easy step into a supply chain risk management system. And on the next slide, you can see on slide number 3, Supplyon is in a nutshell is connecting the international rail industry with their supplier network. You can see on top we have operators, system integrators, tier 1 supplier, right? And connecting the customers to their suppliers with operational procurement tools. And we have solutions for all departments, for strategic sourcing, operational procurement, logistics, quality, finance. We do have a standard solution which enable to be quick with activation, enable synergy effects. We have one platform, and this platform can be used by a community. That means one supplier can use it for multiple operators, system integrators, or tier 1 supplier. Yes, so that's Supplyon. We are between the rail operators, integrators, and tier 1 suppliers and their sub-suppliers. Yeah, in the supply chain, yeah, we can see that we have an increased complexity, right? And this increased complexity is driven by also changes and challenges, and this complexity require mature processes, what we should manage in our daily business. And yeah, we have a lot of effects, right? We have exponential increase of complexity, right? We have reduced logistic performance, reduced competitiveness, supplier getting prices up, and so we need to manage now the changed frame conditions in the supply chain, the increased complexity with the same team or maybe reduced head counts, and nevertheless we should focus on our targets. What we normally want to achieve is to secure the supply chain, to get the transparency. If something happens, make it early visible, see all the bottlenecks in advance, to be fast in reacting, reduce the complexity, right? So reduce data complexity and processes to simplify decision-making processes, and also reduce at the end the risk, which can have a negative impact to our performance, operations, and cost efficiency. From Supplyon side, if we talk about risk and crisis management, from Supplyon perspective, we differentiate between preventive risk management and incident management in case of crisis. And so both topics need to be managed. Yeah? We have different impacts. So in the preventive risk management, we try to identify topics which will come up in the future, right? And here we have some tools and some processes what we can use to make preventive information available before the problem happens, an incident, in crisis management. So this is more operational focus, and here we have a much more deep integration to operational processes, material flows, and this is a combination between operational processes, right? We combine it with our collaboration tools, and also external data, which is sometimes also risk relevant. And you can see on the bottom of the slide, we talk in the supply chain about different functions or also time windows, right? So the sourcing allocation process, the demand collaboration is more long term. If we talk about production operation, transport, dispatching, goods receipt, this is a short-term relation. And in the supply chain, we have a network between events which are happening, which are connected, and we have internal multiple departments managing the supply chain. Each department has their own milestones, but the process is interconnected, and cross-functional, and this is why it has to be interdisciplinary managed on such a level. To do risk management, there are some preconditions. So one is the technical milestone or precondition. So that means we need to have some interfaces, some data, some tools connected. Then we have some processes. So especially if we talk about operational risk management, then there are some processes integrated to SAP or to Oracle, as we heard from Anna. So not everything need to be connected to SAP. Supplyon is quite open for multi-enterprise systems. And so in the strategic risk management, we can take external data and limitize the operational relevance and impact. And if we try to do the full risk management with an operational link, then best way is also to integrate all the processes from all departments into our risk management world. And this allow us in the third level, the operational excellence based on the mature and processes with the transparency, and the risk management system itself is supporting us to get access to the third level from the development path. The risk management need to be based on data, and the question is, where's the data coming from? So we have internal systems, right? At the customer, we have supplier, they have their own system, and we have many processes between customer and supplier. And on the current slide, we can see that there are multiple relations between, and Supplyon is offering multiple process integrations, right, to simplify the business. And we collect a lot of data from each operational process, and we collect it in a data lake, and this data lake is collecting a lot of data, right? And we are very, very fast, very standardized to make this data available and to make it usable in case of risk management. I will show later on a slide where this will be shown. Here we can see we have different parties in the railway industry. We have operators, system integrators, tier 1, tier 2 suppliers. All of them want to work together with integrated processes, and based on this targets if we do a risk management system, and if we have standardized processes, we have a lot of benefits for all stakeholders in the railway industry or in the railway network. Here on the next slide, we can see, so with the risk management system, right, we want to make transparency, yeah, to our holistic system, right? And the enabler to get the transparency is to drive standardization, to have standardized processes with suppliers, data which is also collected in standardized way, to have one standardized platform. And of course, as we heard from Anna, this needs to be very lean. So we have not always big business partners, sometimes also small business partners, different systems, different legal entities. And this is quite important to be in a standardized framework which allow us to work together. And the different drivers, right? Complexity drivers, cost drivers, we see here transparency, complexity, risks. Yeah, so here we want to have influence to these drivers, and these drivers we want to get information, early information from the risk management system, which is collecting all the data from the data lake and give us recommendations, right? And if we have this transparency, we can directly access with activities, and we can manage exceptions in the process to assure on-time delivery. Yeah, we can early identify process costs running out of planned range and agreed frame conditions, and we have inter-department topics where we can increase our influence to the cost information efficiency, what we need to manage our supply chain and the risks. We have many benefits if we have the transparency from the relation itself, and we can see on the next slide. So the targets are to reduce the procurement cost, secure the supply, reduce the cost for non-conformance. Yeah, the transparency is quite important. Yeah, so if I have many operational processes, many suppliers, many transactions, it's important to see where are the exceptions, the compliance topic, the capital work, and we don't need to monitor everything in a manual way. We can really automate the process, and we can see on the next slide. On the bottom of the slide, we have many milestones on the supply chain. Yeah, so starting very early with suppliers. Yeah, make a capacity planning, sourcing events, center demand, order confirmation, production, logistics, goods received, inventory, invoicing. Yeah, you can see on the bottom there are many milestones on a simple supply chain transaction, and multiple systems are involved in departments. Yeah, on customer and supplier side, we can see it on the second level. There are multiple systems and databases, and Supplyon is offering a tool set to connect all the stakeholder and systems in one supply chain, and this allows us to fill a data lake, and in the data lake we have the possibility, business continuity, risk management, what we can take automated results from our risk management perspective, and we can make the global supply chain visible, independent which legal entity is affected, which internal system, is it SAP, is it Oracle, it doesn't matter, because we have a standardized data pool. And and what we can see here, this is a scenario, what is the maximum example, right? We don't need to drive all milestones, all tools and all systems fully integrated. Of course, we are setting priorities, as Anna presented in her presentation previously. You need to look where are main pain points, where can we start quickly, and then to make a strategy how we want to start, how we want to be scalable in the future and do the next steps. And sometimes not you are deciding what are the next steps. The reality and the change frame conditions are helping you to decide the next steps. Yeah. On the next slide, on slide 13, you can see, so if we want to do the risk management, there's a path we need to go. The first path is to have the data which need to be gathered, and best way is to do it in a standardized way. So if I have some standardized processes where I can get the data, this is the first basis, right? Then I can start with data analysis and reporting. This is the advanced analytics so far, right? The data from our supply chain is not everything. So sometimes we also need to enrich it, the data with some external data, as we heard from Anna, financial stability, right? Sustainability, also topic, right? Many other aspects, local, regional aspects, earthquake and so on, political crisis and so on. So, and this is here the topic, to gather operational data, have standardized processes, do analytics, enrich data from external, and then we are able to make predictive data modeling. And in case, if we do strategic risk management, we can do it very quick on external data, but in Supplyon, our approach is also to combine it with operational data to have more powerful possibilities. And at the end, we want to do here the prescriptive analytics and automated business proposal. And we see here, this is the overall toolbox. We have many processes, what we can combine from operational processes in the supply chain to fill the data lake. And the data lake we can see on the next slide. So we see here, we have external data sources. We have our systems, maybe 12 or 20 legal entities with backend systems, Oracle and SAP, as we heard from Anna. We have suppliers, and they are connected via various collaboration tools. We collect data in the data lake, and this tool allows us here then to provide strategic and operational risk management. This can be done in a risk cockpit, high level, right? It can be a risk incident command center where we identified specific incidents which can be managed in teams, in departments, and we can, of course, also have a localized view on a risk map with some strategic input information, right? I nearly complete my last statement so far. Here is the risk management starts with the digitalization of the supply chain. If I want to make it in the final scenario, if I want to integrate the operational data, the process quality of the operational processes is the first milestone, for the operational risk reduction. So it's good to digitalize, to have the processes used, and external data. This can complete the digitization process, and here we get the combination now for holistic view, and we can combine operational data with external data, and this combination is a success factor for the highest efficiency based on operational level, not only strategic risk management based on external data. Okay, so that's it from my side. Mary?
Great. Thank you very much, Sasha and Anna. Some definite fascinating topics there, really interesting. And the questions are starting to come through, so please do ask your questions. We will now be moving into the panel discussion. And joining us for the panel discussion, I'm delighted to welcome Klaus Halvorsen from Banner Nor. He's responsible for their contract portfolio for direct materials, as well as for the framework agreements for the group services. He's also got over 10 years of management consulting experience with PwC and has had several positions with Schlumberger in their supply chain organisation. So Klaus, just to bring you into the conversation as we start our panel discussion, and thinking about what Sasha and Anna have said, what are the kind of key things that you are looking at in terms of supply chain risk in your organisation at the moment?
We are getting quite good control over our contract portfolio and our direct suppliers. So what we are looking into now is more to understand the full supply chain, and to from the commodities and through all the way until it's delivered to us. And actually the start for this has been within sustainability and ethical trade, that we need to understand who is producing the materials and with what countries. But we also can use this understanding of the supply chains to try to predict if there will be a lack of some raw material or anything. So that's our big focus now, to kind of go deeper into the value chain and map this and try to find if we can get some data to give us early alerts if there is maybe it's a mine somewhere that has a problem or something that will affect some sub-supplier of ours, and in the end then will lead to that we do not get the material we need in time, so our projects building out new railway in Norway may be delayed, because that's really what we're trying to avoid. So it's been interesting to hear what Anna and Sasha has said here, and I agree on what they're saying about us, gathering this data. But yeah, so this is, we have very much focus on this now. Of course, with the change in the materials becoming more scarce and all the problems we see there. So
yeah, great, thank you. I'm going to launch straight into a question from the audience, actually. And I think, Sasha, I'll start with you, but I'll bring Klaus and Anna in shortly. But we've talked kind of quite generically about the supply chain risks, given the title of this one is really about mitigating it within the rail supply chain. How can we apply this general knowledge and make it really specific to the rail supply chain? Is there something different we have to do, or can you bring it to life with an experience?
So the experience for the risk management in the supply chain of the rail industry, the activities, how to collect the data, how to process it and make it available for multiple stakeholder and departments. Here we identified that there are a lot of potential for standardization. And on Supplyon side, we not develop for each customer new risk management systems. So on Supplyon side, we have standardized processes, which are, for example, used by multiple operators, by multiple rolling stock manufacturers, right? And we have standard infrastructure, standard messages, processes, and we, based on these standard messages, processes, we have standard methods to collect and process the data, and we have interfaces to external service providers. So, and this allow us to standardize the risk management solution, not only for one customer, we can do it for multiple, and this is, from my point of view, important because you can be cost efficient and you can be very quick. And the question is, what is our focus? Do we want to start maybe in the first phase with the strategic risk management, right? So that means we start with external data first on the basis of our suppliers, like it was mentioned by Klaus. Yeah. So we have our suppliers. We want to make a scoring, sustainability scoring, financial scoring, like it was presented by Anna. This is one topic, and for the first phase, this can be activated very, very quick. And the advanced possibility might be that we can also do one step ahead, that we connect our operational strategic sourcing processes, purchasing processes, and quality processes with our risk management. And then we can see, oh, we have a supplier which is delivering 70% damaged material since last week. We have impact to 3 legal entities, right? Our operations is heavily blocked. And on the second supplier, we have a finance risk which will catch us next month. And these are some topics. So as more as we connect the external data, with the operational data, we are able to make better identified preconditioned proposal, what need to be managed, what are the crises of next week.
Great, a very, very comprehensive answer. Anna, or let's go to you next. Have you got anything to add to that in terms of how you apply some of these lessons specifically in Arriva's rail businesses?
Certainly, watching with awe the Supplyon solution and reflecting on the wealth of data that could be available to the users with such a robust solution, and then combining it with, how do you apply that solution specifically to the rail sector? I think in our experience, there is that very basic set of requirements when it comes to supplier qualification that apply regardless of the sector. Now, to answer specifically this question, when we look at our rail colleagues and rail suppliers, we then go back to this concept of category specific requirements. And there you can see, for example, rail safety requirements, right? Where you need to screen your vendor on whether or not they can be compliant with those requirements. Or you can look at the environmental requirements. And so when it comes to using a tool that could give you a lot of insights, I think, again, you need to go back to the principles of that risk-based approach. So understand where are your most significant risks. And they could be, again, about rail safety. They could be about financial stability. They could be about the supply itself and availability of specific materials, spare parts, right? Mm-hmm. And so that I feel is the answer on how to apply a robust solution like Supplyon in the rail context, by understanding which risks are the most significant and employing this tool to really understand those most significant risks in great detail.
Great, thank you. And Klaas, anything you'd like to add to that hasn't already been said?
Well, I agree with that. Yeah, you need to look at different kinds of risks. What we talking about rail specific things, we incorporate in this ERPC together with some of the others big operators in Europe, and what we think we should do is to kind of standardize what the requests or demands we put on our suppliers and their suppliers in a way to find out about this information. As I said, I need to understand the whole supply chain. And when it comes to demands then about both sustainability, but also maybe where do they get their iron from, or where do they buy these things? Because now they tend to say maybe that it's confidential. It's our competitive advantage is our supply chain. So we need to make it easier to say, no, this is not confidential. We know that you're buying this on the spot or whatever. And we also can standardize that we ask the questions in the same way, so that the suppliers do not have to put a lot of work into to answer the same question in different ways. So I think we're trying to achieve something in that area that will then flow through the supply chains. So I think that is one measure we can take to maybe move on here and get a better insight in how things work, and then to be able to catch when something happens, we find out a little bit earlier and can take action on it earlier to avoid that we have a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's part of the steps of going to this transactional relationship. Certainly in the UK, in my experience, it's very transactionally based, and trying to move to partnership, you kind of have to get the win-win scenario in there, and everybody moving the common goal as well. So those answers actually prompted a question in my head. And I mean, I'm a UK rail expert, but obviously I have a good understanding of internationally. But as an industry, we tend to be quite inward looking. We tend to look at the railway in other countries as opposed to other sectors as well. And Klaas, particularly with your experience with, in other sectors, Are there other sectors? Well, there are other sectors grappling with the same challenges. How much should we be working with them or stealing their ideas and stealing with pride their ideas? And are there particular areas you think we should be looking at?
Definitely. I'm working in Norway, but I'm actually Swedish, and Sweden is much more a industrial country. Norway is very good at projects. You know, they're building oil platforms there, and we are building projects or building railway. So we can learn a lot when it comes to the systems and everything. The more traditional industrial industries are far ahead of us. So that's something we try to do, to look outside what other railway companies are doing and look into automotive or electronics or others for systems. Definitely, they are far ahead of us. Maybe too far ahead. We actually earlier today I had a meeting with someone trying to sell my system, but I said, you wait too far ahead, so no one will understand what you're saying. So again, back to Anna here, you can't make it too complicated. So it's finding this balance that it's usable. You get a good user interface and all that things. So you're not trying to do too much at one time. That's really the balance, to take small steps, I think. But there's a lot of things to learn, of course, from other branches.
Yeah.
And what you said, Mary, is exactly so. For example, in Supplyon, if we compare the requirements from different customers, so if we compare the customer requirements from the network providers, right from rolling stock manufacturers or classical manufacturing companies like Bosch, Siemens, or the air industry, which is using Supplyon like Airbus and so on, or Ricardo. So here we see that there are a lot of overlapping. And the question is also the investments, right? So do we need to invent the processes? Do we need to design it multiple times, or can we share maybe also investments? So this is a topic which is discussed by many of our customers, and we try in expert group meetings, we try to get them together and sometimes also to have shared investments from multiple branch aspect.
Great, thank you. And Anna, obviously Arriva has multiple different, it's got buses and trains and boats, etc. DRT. How much do you think there's knowledge sharing across those sectors, and how much do you look outside?
That's an interesting question in the context of Arriva. I'm finding that our rail colleagues, especially in the UK, are very diligent when it comes to understanding their vendors, their partners, and really analyzing the risk in great detail. So I think that the learnings that happen probably tend to come from other industries rather than from other parts of Arriva to rail. I think that specifically for Arriva, our rail business is the source of best practice just by its nature. That rail safety paradigm drives a lot of diligence. I think from my experience in the past, you could look at other sectors for sources of kind of ideas, such as, I don't know, retail, for example, where supply chain is absolutely essential to success, right? I think looking at some of the questions that we'll answer shortly, I would also say that there are many elements of experience and ideas across digital transformation projects where you build those partnerships with your vendors, with your suppliers, and you learn how to grow together, how to develop good projects and good solutions together. So in short, I think there are definitely sources of ideas and solutions everywhere, and it's important to be creative and open.
Great. No, thank you. Okay, so let's go back to an audience question, which is actually, I think, very pertinent. Since the start of the year, there's been serious shortages in key items in the supply chain. Often these are items that are used in multiple industries as well. Microchips is named here, but we see Tesla and Apple fighting over the same semiconductors, etc. But so the question is, how have the tools and methodologies shown today helped, or how can they help reduce the problem where lead times are increasing due to global shortages? So Sasha, over to you first, please.
So if we talk about lead times, we talk about processing of data and material, and we can speed up lead times. So the pre-cycle time, for example, in case that we let the demand message flow electronically, so that we don't need somebody human who need to write down by hand the PO data, which maybe has a high data volume. So we can really assist the information flow to let it flow faster and import it to the receiving system half automated, right? This is one topic. From the data processing side, if we talk about the lead time from organizational topic, it's also possible that we work more deeply with supplier together to give them more responsibility. So if I do, for example, vendor managed inventory, I can hand over the responsibility for stock replenishment to a supplier and let the supplier refill the stock in a minimum maximum level, right? And based on the increased responsibility, suppliers are normally organizing themselves production planning, and this effect, what I see every project again and again, is that the lead time is getting reduced. Supplier try to get other customer orders produced, and they are willing to give you a shorter lead time. In parallel, they are producing their tooling cost, their production planning, their transport cost by better utilization, and so on and so on. So there are different examples. Data flow is one topic. Material planning is another topic, right? And if we look over the whole supply chain milestones, what we have, there are many other examples, but I guess now you need to stop me talking.
No,
Okay.
no, we've got plenty of time. Please carry on.
So if we talk about lead time, of course, there are also possibilities that we can do, for example, transport. We can also optimize transports that we manage from customer perspective. If we have materials, we manage the transport ourselves. And here, for example, we can optimize also the data flow that we collect from our supplier. The information now it's available. We can pick it up, right? And sometimes we can pick it up earlier if it's required, or we can wait. We can combine multiple transports together on one load and make a milk run, what else? So here we have possibilities to optimize the material flow, utilization, cost efficiency together, and be in time. And if I'm managing the transport, right, I can also take out my security buffer, because if I have more transparency in the supply chain about my lead times, what is in reality done, then I have much more security in my operations, in my production, because of the increased transparency along the whole supply chain.
Great, thank you. And Klaas, is this an issue that you've been facing too, and what steps have you taken to mitigate it?
Yeah, as I said, we are focusing on it now. We are not so mature as I should wish, but what we're also doing is going the other way, that working on the prognosis to understand better what are our needs, and to be able then to earlier understand what we need, and thereby place the orders earlier. So that's one part of it. We are, of course, a public financed company. So we're even working towards the politicians to give us the budgets, not just for 1 year at a time or a half year at a time, but a longer period. And we're actually doing some things there. So that will help us to be, well, it's kind of sales and operations planning then, that we know as soon as we know something about our demand, that we can feed it down the supply chain. And I think we expect to see some results of that here. But also what Sasha's saying, of course, that we try to understand better all these areas of transport and maybe if the vendors should handle safety stock for us. And we're looking into that now, but we haven't done too much so far. So.
Yeah, okay, no, thank you. And Anna, anything that you'd like to add from an Arriva perspective?
I think perhaps from a broader perspective, the question is of your time horizon, because if you've got enough time, you can look at your make versus buy decisions, right? As, for example, Apple did recently, coming back to the microchips question, and they are releasing their own microchip, right? But I think in the more realistic time horizons and looking at the supply chain issues that are more manageable, so not at shocks where everybody is affected, but predictability in your supply chain, I would go back to what Sasha says about visibility of your inventory, different inventory replenishment strategies, using MRP, material requirements planning, so that you can have predictable and reliable inventory of the critical materials. I think that's my best strategy for protection against those supply chain shocks.
Yeah, no, great. And I know certainly, it's that certainty as well and that forward-looking pipeline. And I know here in the UK, the supply chain have been talking to the government, going, we need some certainty. We need to, so then we can forecast, and then when you can forecast, you can better manage the risk as well. So, okay, great. I'm going to take another audience question, actually. This is going a bit more into the system side of it, and I think it's particularly thinking about the kind of smaller organisations and SMEs in the supply chain. But actually, there was a lot of talk of systems. Do the supply chain need to have compatible IT systems? If it's, for small organisations, it's a challenge to invest in this area, particularly when margins are low. So how do you mitigate that, and how do you ensure that actually everybody can access it? And Sasha, I know we had a similar question last week, so I'll go to you first to answer this one, please.
Yes, so from the IT perspective, it's helpful if we use, for example, standard.
I'm sure Sasha will be back in a minute.
Yes, we can. Whilst we're waiting for Mary to come back, I can add a few words from my experience working on a project on the other side of the supply chains, on the side of finance and accounts payable, but also working with a wide range of different suppliers and building different solutions to integrate data from suppliers. And so completely agreeing with what Sasha said, that there are different ways of connecting the systems and injecting data into the systems. Typically, you would also have what we call different channels of integration. And you can have a fully automatic channel of integration that would be using specific EDI protocols. You can have a direct interface with a really large supplier that has got that IT capability. But you can also have self-service solutions for smaller vendors that might not yet have the degree of investment in their IT. And so they could connect to a vendor portal and, for example, upload their supply qualification documentation, their certificates, and so on and so on. Right? So these solutions would be manual, would be very easy to use for smaller vendors, perhaps wouldn't offer the full array of data, access to full array of data, but nevertheless allow all the range of suppliers to engage with those solutions.
Great, Anna, and thank you for jumping in when I had a little IT glitch as well. So actually, well, so keeping actually with the theme of SMEs, another question that's come from the audience is really about actually how you safeguard the interests of SMEs, particularly if they supply critical items in small numbers. I mean, the question actually references straight to Arriva, but Klas, I'm going to go to you first, and what steps that you take to protect your SMEs and make sure that they that it's fair and fully transparent and open to everybody.
I'm not sure if I really understood. So the smaller suppliers, what's yes. Compared to the potential competition, or what do you mean?
I think the question really refers to, it was from when Anna was talking, but when you're putting in systems, new supply chain systems, how you ensure that it doesn't favour larger organisations who might have deeper pockets.
So we can't typically, again, we've been public, you can't put demands in there that only the bigger ones can deliver on, because that will exclude the smaller ones and so on. Yes, we try to do that. We have, again, the government are pushing us to do this, that the competition should be open for smaller businesses. And and again, we do not have the big demands on the integration of systems today. We do a lot of what Anna suggested. We have simple things, forms and things that they can feed data to us with a little manual input, but they can give us data, and now with forms and Power BI solutions and things we can build these things quite easily, actually, without too much effort. And we have a very good small analytical team in procurement that handles these things and finds solutions quite easily. So I guess this area has improved a lot, like the latest 5 years. When it comes to exchanging data information. Right now we're mapping fuel, CO2 emissions and so on. Everybody should report on that. So we're just making very simple report, and that should be easy for our suppliers to just feed that data and give us, so we can report upwards what's happening now. So I think it's improving a lot, the technical solutions for this kind of things. So.
Yeah, great. No, thank you. And Anna, since the question was kind of directed at you when you were talking, how have you protected SMEs across Arriva's supply chain?
I think the answer goes back to what you said at the beginning, and it's not about the data, it's about relationships in the end. There are many cases where we have partnerships with smaller vendors who provide critical equipment, critical materials. And from risk perspective, that partnership provides us those critical insights that we know to assess that risk, right? We know that we've been working together for a while. We know each other very well. We know what sort of relationship we have. And that is really the answer to the risk assessment here. When I said earlier that human judgment is indispensable, as much as I love working with data and place a lot of trust in understanding the world through data. In some cases, that partnership gives you the insights that you need to take the right decision.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. And Sasha, anything you would like to add to that about how you protect SMEs?
Yes, if we talk about critical material, for example, like computer chips and so on, something like this, there we have normally huge suppliers for such critical materials. Supplyon, as a neutral partner, is able to add an additional transparency. We synchronize with the partners, with the supplier, and synchronize the demand planning of the customer with the production planning of the supplier. But this is a very exclusive topic, right? What you not do with every partner. But if you have some real critical business partner with a real big impact, and this is a topic what you can do to synchronize on a emergency managed level the business processes. And for small business partners, I guess this was the initial question, right, Mary? For small business partners, we provide simplified processes. That means, for example, in the spare part business, sometimes you have extremely low quantities, sporadic demands, and there you need to simplify the access to the data, to simplify the systems. We have the same requirements as we have from BMW spare part logistics as we have in the railway spare part logistics. So small business partner need simplified demand collaboration at one side, but on the other hand, as the demand is small and the purchasing power is less compared to the supplier, sometimes we need additional controlling and transparency tools to see, did they read the demand? Did they confirm? Did they respond? We are coming now close to the demand delivery date. We can remind them, we ordered 1 year ago and now it's time to deliver. Are you aware of? And so on. And there are multiple ways where we can increase the synchronization with suppliers. But we need to be very careful. It needs to be very simple and easy to use if we talk about small and medium suppliers.
I think I keep hearing a message from what everybody's saying is keep it simple. Start simple and build up as well. So definitely a theme emerging here. I just encourage the audience. We've got about 8 to 10 minutes left, so please, there's still time to ask your questions. Please do ask your questions. Whilst we're seeing if some more questions come through, I'm going to ask a question that's very close to my heart at the moment. With COP26 actually happening in Glasgow, and all eyes on Barack Obama yesterday and his speech, and it increasingly moving up the agenda for all organisations. Where do we see the sustainability risks? And actually, it's not a new area, but it's probably a hard to measure area in some areas. So how do we actually predict and mitigate the risks that this sustainability agenda will introduce in the supply chain? So Sasha, I'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah. So one way is to get the possibility to quickly make surveys with partners. If I have some direct topics where I directly need to ask something very specific, right? I should be able to have a simple way to ask questions to a supplier, get easy answer, and to collect all the data in a database in the best way. But if we come back to the sustainability topic, we have also here in Europe some changes on the legal side, and here in Germany, for example, it's required to have some external auditors, for example, integrated in the process. I'm not myself able to do a sustainability audit with all of my business partners, and there, for example, we are partnering with external sustainability auditors, right, as external data party in the same way as we have other providers for risk data, and we combine it with the operational business data. And this combination of external sustainability audits with the operational data makes now the chance for you to make a dashboard where you can easily see my suppliers, who has a good sustainability rating, and where do we see some topics, which supplier don't have the required sustainability ratings, and how do we get them qualified?
Yeah, exactly. And I think historically a lot of organizations have looked at themselves and their own sustainability agenda, and it's increasingly moving down to look at what the supply chain sustainability is as well. So Klaas, just bringing you into that, how are you approaching kind of the additional risks as a result of the sustainability agenda?
I mentioned a little bit earlier that we have higher demands on openness, and we will get more revisions on this area. So there's a big focus on it. And again, I think standardizing so that we team up with Deutsche Bahn and the other big players and standardize how we go to the market to make it easier for everyone, and also to get the bigger buying power, of course. Let's say this is here to stay. So if you want to be in the market, you must be able to answer these questions, but we will make it as simple as possible for you. And again, standardize and work together, I think is our focus here. So we're looking forward to it. And it's actually the topic we will meet in ERPT in May. And this will be one of the topics then, how to work with these areas.
I mean, I'm presenting it as a risk here, but it's also a huge opportunity. Let's not forget that as well. But Anna, anything you would like to add to that question?
Yes, sustainability is very big on Arriva's agenda at the moment, and we're actually also in Glasgow talking about different ways in which we are driving that agenda. And zero emission vehicles is one area where we're doing a lot of work, building infrastructure for electric charging, exploring other zero emission transport modes. So that's a very, very exciting area of development for us. In a more basic and operational space, I think going back to what Sasha and Klaas said, deeper understanding of requirements when it comes to sustainability during the strategic sourcing process is one tool that we're increasingly employing to increase that awareness amongst our supply chain, which can be quite fragmented, and so we're building those deeper relationships with our vendors to really push that agenda forward.
Great. Thank you very much. So we've only got a few minutes left. I just thought I'd quickly ask the top 3 tips that you would give audience members in terms of how to answer the question, how you identify the right data to predict and mitigate the supply chain. So Anna, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but if you were to say top 3 pieces of advice, what would they be for audience members?
First of all, but back to what I said earlier, really understand your key risks and prioritize. There will always be that one specific risk area that will address a big portion of your risk. So prioritization is understanding the risks, and prioritization, I would say, is the first best tip. The second one is that iterative problem solving, solution building process. Starting small, starting with a small set of data, or very basic set of data. If you can't do a pilot, just start with one layer of data and see what you can add, how you can enrich that data, how you can make that data more meaningful, more relevant to your business. And once you build that, you'll find that from that complexity you can add another layer. So complexity and quality is an iterative process. You will never start from the target solution. You will always start from something small and build around it. So start small, start simple, and build gradually. And then I think the standardization was the word that we heard a lot from Supplyon and from Sasha, and it is a challenge that I've been working a lot across my my professional experience, and sometimes it is seen as not a goal, not an aspiration, but perhaps a barrier in business to say, oh, our data are really poor and not standardized, our processes are not standardized. And to that, my third piece of advice, really important, is don't start with that ideal goal in mind. Do not let that standardization block you, because it will happen as you go. It will happen as you go. Standardization is very important in achieving that really rich insights about your data, but you will get there. Don't let it.
Yeah. Okay. So we are just about to time out, but I don't want to don't want to stop without Klaas and Sasha having. So as succinctly and quickly as you can, Klaas, your top 3 tips for mitigating the data.
Yeah, I think maybe, as Anna said, prioritize and focus. What's the biggest risk we have, and where are we a big customer as well? So something we can actually change and affect. The other thing is maybe look at what others do and try to, understand best practice is always smart. Yeah. Talk to people around you and say, what are you doing? And not try to do it from scratch yourself.
Yeah.
And then just don't make it too complicated. Just get going and do some pilots, and do not become over ambitious, but you will develop as you go, I think, and try to get some small successes and celebrate those, and then move on. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And Sasha, anything you want to add to that?
Only few topics to add. I fully agree what was said by Anna and Klaas. So what I would like to add is do it step by step. For example, strategic risk management can be the first step. And think strategic, think about the data lake, collect the data in a data lake, and based on the data lake, you can do later on additional processes, data, and you can be agile.
Great. Thank you very much. And I should also say thank you to Supplyon for sponsoring this. So that concludes today's webinar. I've found it fascinating, so much expertise in the room. I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Anna, Klaas and Sasha for your insight and your expertise. Also a huge thank you for the audience for your attention today and for your input into the questions as well. Clearly a hot topic given the number of questions that we are. And I'll just hand over to Jules to wrap up today's webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thank you to the speakers as well. What a fascinating discussion. I've made so much notes. We've learned a lot about the rail supply chain, how to mitigate risks, how to use data. So start simple, steal from other sectors, work in partnership with your partners, standardize processes, use data lake, and start working on sustainable supply chain, and many more things to think about. But I think it's definitely given us a lot of food for thought, and something to we can all take away a lot of things to consider for your supply chain processes. So thank you very much to all the speakers for today's debate. So this marks the last of this year's webinar series. So we've done 10 webinar sessions this week. So thank you to all the audience members. Thank you to all the speakers and the sponsors for making our webinar program possible. And hopefully you've all made something out of our program. And we'll resume our webinar program next year in April or May, having spent the next few months working on our next annual summit, the International Railway Summit, which is happening in February. So having done the last one this February in an online format, we're very much hoping that we're back in a physical format in Berlin. So we'll be talking a lot about innovation and about social, environmental, and economic sustainability. So, as part of the discussion today with COP26 happening right now in Glasgow, what railways should be doing right now to sort of move into this kind of new area of new kind of sustainability mindset. We talked earlier about the fact that railways are kind of following other sectors, but in this particular kind of idea of sustainability, railways are in many ways miles ahead of other sectors. So, but how can we sort of get even better at that? And this is something that we'll be talking about in February. So do plan to join us for that. There's all sorts of information on our website, iris.org. If you're interested in attending, speaking, or sponsoring or exhibiting, do get in touch with us, and either myself or my colleagues will be able to help you with that. At the same time, in the same week, we'll have a presentation ceremony for this newly launched International Sustainable Railway Awards. In association with UIC, the International Union of Railways. We are once again celebrating the sustainability, all the efforts that rail operators and infrastructure managers are putting in the area of sustainability. I'm also announcing here that the application was due to close this coming Friday, but we are extending that with the help of jury members and our process partner. We're able to extend this application deadline to the 10th of December. So you have a bit more time to send your applications in, and I think this is a very important topic for a lot of rail operators. So we're giving a little bit more time for the operators and infrastructure managers to submit your applications. So Klaas and Anna, I hope you and your colleagues will be able to submit some applications for these awards as well. Do plan to enter and join us at the presentation ceremony as well in Berlin in February. So without further ado, thank you very much to all of the audience members, speakers, and the sponsor Supplyon for making this webinar today possible. Thank you to the moderator Mary Hewitt, speakers Anna Shiraga, Sasha Korbis, and Klaas Halvardsson, and thank you to the audience once again. Have a good afternoon, good evening, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.